Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the TouchDownUnder podcast. I'm Jack, your host, and I'm here with Emilian,
Hey, how's it going?
Anthony,
Glad to be here.
and Arif.
Good to be back.
This is episode 4, where we'll be going through our All NFC East and All NFC North division teams. You can follow along with us on our Instagram page, where we posted our All NFC North and All NFC East division teams. And today, during the podcast, we'll be discussing our choices at each position. So without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start with the All NFC East team, and at quarterback we have Carson Wentz of the Philadelphia Eagles. Personally, I feel like Wentz is the easy choice here. His 2017 season was of an MVP caliber. I don't believe much in Dak Prescott. He's been part of winning teams in 3 out of his 4 years in the league, and only has one playoff win to show for it. Granted, Wentz's injury history is shaky, but when both are at their best, I'm taking Wentz all day.
Yeah, so his 2017 season automatically puts him at the top in the division, consisting of Dak Prescott, Dwayne Haskins, and Daniel Jones. There can be a case made for Dak Prescott here. Last season, he did throw for almost 5,000 yards, and he hasn't missed a game, unlike Wentz, who is quite injury prone, as we've seen. But I mean, despite this, Carson Wentz is definitely a better player. He doesn't have as good of a supporting cast as Dak Prescott. He has Zeke. Carson Wentz does not. So for me, easy choice here.
Yeah, I really liked his 2017 season, as you mentioned, Emilian. I just think that alone, compared to the second best option in this division, obviously being Dak Prescott, it just puts him that little bit ahead, in my opinion. I don't think it's that close. I don't think Dak can match Carson Wentz if we're selecting the best quarterback in that division.
He's a very talented player for sure. As you mentioned, he didn't have the greatest supporting cast. He still managed to put up a 27-7 ratio, touchdown to interception. The only thing that he can probably improve is his ball security. He had the second most fumbles in the league with 17 last season. But if he did stay on the field and he wasn't so injury prone, he'd definitely be a borderline elite quarterback by now.
Emilian, I did like that point of yours about Dak Prescott having Ezekiel Elliott. I do like what Wentz has been able to do with less.
Yep.
He has a worse running game, but I do like Sanders in that offensive scheme. But Dak has, he's got that really good offensive line. He's got, Ezekiel Elliott. He's got Amari Cooper. Yeah. I just don't think he's been able to do enough with the guys that he's got around him.
To be put on top
to elevate himself over Carson Wentz.
You'd think that'd be a playoff team they got in Dallas with the supporting cast that Dak has.
Yeah, and the defense is good as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it falls on him. At running back 1, we have Ezekiel Elliott from the Cowboys. Elliott is the clear running back 1 here, in my opinion. He's consistently been a stud in this league since he was drafted, and I don't see that changing, especially behind that premium Cowboys offensive line. I believe it's too early in Saquon Barkley's career to say he's better than Elliott, despite him also being a beast.
Yeah, so while Zeke does benefit from an incredible offensive line, I mean, come on. He does have the entire offense running through him, and he is the reason why that offense can put up such great numbers. It's quite incredible what he's been able to accomplish in all 4 of his seasons. I mean, he has only rushed for less than 1,000 yards in 1 season, and that's because he was suspended for 6 games. And even then, he ran for 983 yards. He was only 17 yards away from having 1,000 yards in 10 games. Like, that's just incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
Prescott's security blanket.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you mentioned that offensive line helping him out. But I reckon if you compare Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott as those 2 top running backs in that division, I reckon, definitely you go Zeke, just because of the consistency. Obviously, he's played more seasons in the division. Saquon Barkley only came into the NFL a couple of seasons ago. Like what I've seen from him, obviously, he could challenge Zeke in the future as being that top running back. But I think just based off the amount of time that Zeke spent in the league and what he's done, I think you have to go with him.
Yeah,
top.
Zeke's definitely a talented back. If he can just stay out of trouble off the field, then he'll go a long way to definitely securing that best running back in the league spot.
At our running back 2 spot is obviously where we have Saquon Barkley. This NFC East backfield really is stacked. I believe they possess 2 of the best 3 running backs in all of football. I'm of course talking about Elliott, Barkley, and Christian McCaffrey. Barkley put up outstanding numbers last year despite playing only 13 games. He, at times, was off his game last season, but I mostly attribute that to the Giants' porous offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, just look at his rookie season. He had over 2,000 total yards in his rookie season. And last season, in his sophomore year, he almost had 1,500 total yards. And he was injured 3 games, as I said, that he carries his offense. On that offense, who do you have there that's at elite status at that position? I don't think you can say anyone is.
Yeah.
It's really great to see how much of a freak this guy is athletically and how well he's been able to produce in such a bad offense.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Yeah, you said that he carries his offense. I agree with that. We compare Zeke in Dallas. He's obviously got a really good offensive line. They're well-rounded. Their aerial attack is good. So it's a bit hard to compare those two backs. Obviously, their offense is different, but
Yeah.
I reckon Zeke has more raw talent. But Saquon Barkley, obviously, we saw what he did in Penn State a few seasons back in his last season in college. He's scary, that's for sure. He's second in the division in our rankings, but I reckon he can really push for that top spot if
without
their
doubt.
offense was better. But at this point in time, with their offense being so reliant on him, we can't see a well-rounded performance from him. I don't think we can have him in that top spot yet.
He'll continue to get better once that
Yeah,
offensive line
I mean,
improves.
he's only
And
had 2 seasons.
They obviously added to their offensive line in the form of Andrew Thomas in the draft, so hopefully we'll see an even bigger improvement from him. Irf?
You guys made some great points there. I'd also like to note even though he missed 3 games, he still had the second most receptions on the Giants, only behind Sterling Shepard, who himself missed 6 games. We're going to talk about the Giants receiving core later, but they don't have that clear-cut number 1 guy there, and Saquon is the focal point of that offense.
Our wide receiver 1 is Amari Cooper from the Cowboys. This is a pretty obvious choice at number 1. He's been, a massive help, a great option there for Dak Prescott. Since he's been in Dallas, he's been amazing. As I said, Cooper has been that go-to guy for Dak Prescott in that Dallas offense, and I think he will definitely continue to be for seasons to come.
Yeah, in Oakland, he was good, not great. He played in 2018. He played 6 games for them, and he only got 280 yards receiving. When he moved to the Cowboys, he almost tripled that in just 9 games. He finished that season with 1,005 receiving yards, and he improved on that this season. In 2019, where he got 1,189 yards and 8 touchdowns.
It's a different player.
Yeah, so I don't think he's one of the best receivers in the league without a doubt. But I think in that particular offensive scheme, he's flourishing as a number 1 receiver, and honestly, I don't see a better fit for him right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Clearly, Dak's number 1 target. Was a great addition a few seasons back. Yeah, I reckon he's just deserving of the top pick in this division at wide receiver, yeah.
Yeah, he's really good to watch, as shown by his 15.1 yards per reception last season.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones traded a first-round pick for him, and it's definitely paying off to this point.
Our wide receiver 2 is Golden Tate from the New York Giants. Tate has been a really reliable receiver for basically all of his career. He's been a guy Daniel Jones can trust throwing a ball to, especially in his rookie season, and I think he'll continue to be Jones's go-to guy in his sophomore season.
I'd say he's a good but not great receiver right now. He's 31. He's definitely past his prime. I don't see him improving in the future anymore. He was great in his prime in Detroit. And yes, he did miss 4 games last year. I'm still not convinced that he'll have another 1,000-yard season. Personally, I think that he should be number 3 in this all-division team.
Yeah, see, last time Golden Tate had a 1,000-yard season was in 2017. Now, I do think what you said a minute about him being 31 years old, in a not-so-productive New York offense, I don't think he'll be able to get back to that level. But nonetheless, I do think he is probably deserving of getting this spot in our wide receiver 2 in our list.
I personally think that if Sterling Shepard wasn't injured, he'd be occupying either this spot or the spot, like the wide receiver 3. I don't think Tate can get much better than he already is. Granted, that is serviceable at this point in his career, but I don't think he's that kind of game changer. He is 31 years old.
Yeah, I just agree with you there, Arif. I feel like Golden Tate is a better player than Shepherd and is deserving of more targets than a guy like Shepherd, who's been in the league for a little while now and hasn't really come on as, a really number one receiver kind of guy. At wide receiver 3, we have Terry McLaurin out of Washington. Emilian, like you said, Golden Tate eventually will be overtaken by McLaurin as the number 2 receiver in his division. I feel like the reason he isn't already there now is because it was his rookie season last year, but we do know just how impressive he was in his rookie season. He really burst onto the scene in his rookie year and put up amazing numbers, especially considering Dwayne Haskins was his quarterback. I think with better QB play in the future, he will just continue to get better, and he may even eventually become the number 1 receiver in the division if he stays at the Redskins.
He had 919 yards in 14 games last year. And that was with Dwayne Haskins, who was incredibly... he was thrown to the wolves pretty much on that.
It's pretty erratic last season.
So the ceiling for McLaurin is incredibly high right now. I can easily see him turning into one of the best receivers in the league. Barring injuries, I think next season he'll easily get over 1,000 yards. Dwayne Haskins, I do think he'll improve on a pretty bad rookie campaign. So I'm very happy with McLaurin. I think he should be number 2 on this list.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that, Emilian. I just hope it's his first season in the league. He said you mentioned he had 919 yards from that 14 games. I really hope that he can put some consistency together in the next few seasons at Washington, so that their offense can just have a reliable target in the future for Dwayne Haskins to also improve. But I just hope he can have consistency. So I'm not 100% sold on him yet. I hope that wasn't just fluke. Yep. But nonetheless, probably deserving. I can't think of a wide receiver that should be on this list higher. So yeah, I guess 3rd is a good choice for him.
Yeah, well, we hope he doesn't have a sophomore slump next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. He had 2 below average quarterbacks throwing to him last season, still managed to put up 919 receiving yards. That's amazing for a rookie. I don't think, as we talked about before, I don't think Haskins will be as poor as he was last season. The coaches and his teammates have been saying that he's got those leadership qualities. He just needs to perform on the field. He got put in way too early, I reckon, in his season. That kind of interrupted his growth. So I think he's primed for a good sophomore season.
At tight end, we have Zach Ertz from the Philadelphia Eagles. This was probably the easiest choice of our all-division teams to date. Ertz is the obvious choice at tight end. His only competition here for this spot is Evan Ingram, and despite Ingram's ability and potential, he's nowhere near the player Ertz is at this current point in time, and I don't actually think he will reach Ertz's level of play.
Yeah, I agree with every point you've made there. I've got nothing to add. Easy choice there, Zach Ertz.
Yeah, I agree. So obviously the last few seasons, in terms of stat-wise, they've been relatively consistent. He's averaged around 900 for most his career. I only see him getting better. Can't disagree with anything you said.
So we move on now to the offensive line. At offensive tackle, we have Tyron Smith out of Dallas. At guard, Zach Martin from the Cowboys. At center, Jason Kelsey from the Philadelphia Eagles. At guard, Brandon Brooks from Philadelphia. And at tackle, Lane Johnson from the Eagles as well. The Eagles and Cowboys have 2 of the best offensive lines in the NFL, in my opinion, which to me explains why both teams have relatively potent passing and running games.
Yeah, and there's no surprise that there's only Eagles and Cowboys players here on this team. I mean, the Giants and Redskins have terrible offensive lines. There's no way either of them could put a player on this team when they have Dallas and Dallas and Philadelphia to compete with here.
Yeah, Dallas gave up the second least sacks last season. Philadelphia was in the middle of the pack in the NFL, but they did have a lot of injuries. So, as you said, definitely the 2 best offensive lines in the NFC East.
So now we move on to the defense. At defensive end, we have DeMarcus Lawrence from the Cowboys. Lawrence is Dallas's best defensive player, I'd probably say, and he's the pretty obvious choice here at DE1.
Yeah, he did have a down year last season, but before that he had double-digit sacks in both 2017 and 2018. I'd say, like you said, he is the best defensive player on the Cowboys, so it only makes sense for him to be our best defensive end in the NFC East.
Yep, completely agree with you, Millen. That kind of needed to that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
At defensive tackle, we have Fletcher Cox from Philadelphia. Cox is a real force among that Eagles front seven.
No one in this division can compete with Fletcher Cox as the best defensive tackle here. He's put up a respectable amount of sacks every year as a defensive tackle, and he's healthy most of the time. I mean, who else could you put here?
Being the number one for a few seasons now.
Yeah, he's been incredible. I mean, stats-wise, he had a bit of a regression from his 2018 season, but he's still amazing. I mean, the man gets double-teamed at defensive tackle.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a beast.
At defensive end, we have Brandon Graham from the Eagles. Obviously, with guys like Fletcher Cox on defense, it's easy to kind of go under the radar. Graham is slightly underrated, I'd say, among that Eagles defense, but he is definitely productive.
I definitely think he's a very underappreciated player on that Eagles defense. He's been very consistent for them in the past 6 seasons, and we can't forget that he was the one who made that play on Tom Brady in Super Bowl 52 and won the Eagles their first championship.
8.5 sacks last season. I reckon he's definitely deserving of being at this position now in our rankings. Yeah.
Yeah, stats-wise, he doesn't put up huge numbers, but he's, as you said, he's that consistent guy, very underappreciated.
So now our two outside linebackers, we have Ryan Kerrigan, the Washington Redskin, and Leighton Vander Esch from Dallas.
Ryan Kerrigan, I know he had a down year last season, but apart from that, he's a veteran and he's consistently performed at a great level throughout his career. He had double-digit sacks in 2016, 17, and 18. Yeah. I have no doubt that he'll come back next season and perform at his usual standard.
Like Cox at defensive tackle, Kerrigan has been the number one guy at his position in this division for quite a few years now, and I don't think that's going to be changing this year either.
Exactly. It's good for the Redskins to have more of a veteran presence at that position. I agree with what you said. He's dominated this division in terms of that position for such a long time now. Yeah, great player.
Maybe he didn't have the same amount of sacks as he did in previous seasons, but still in 12 games he had 14 quarterback hits. He's still able to put on pressure.
I'd just like to add that going into next season, on the other side of that line, you're going to have Chase Young for the Redskins here.
Exactly.
That's just going to give Ryan Kerrigan more and more opportunities to get to the quarterback. It's going to be very fun to watch.
And the other outside linebacker there, Leighton Vander Esch, he was just incredible in his rookie season in 2018. He was injured for a fair portion of last season, which was a bit of a shame, but he still had 72 tackles and a forced fumble in that reduced playing time, and I think he'll continue to get better as well.
Yeah, well, I don't think numbers-wise he'll get back to his 2018 form. I mean, he had 140 total tackles in his rookie season, as well as 2 interceptions. I do think he'll be back at a similar level and be another one of the best defensive players on that Cowboys team.
Yeah, 140 combined tackles is, it's very impressive for a rookie. I don't see him getting back to that level. I think it's, pretty high standard. He's a good player nonetheless. Yeah, he's deserving of being at this spot in the ranking. Yeah.
Yeah, the big question mark around him. I mean, they have said that his neck has fully healed, but that is a pretty serious injury when you think about it. It's not like a knee where you can probably come back from at that position, a neck injury where you have to tackle a lot
with the position he plays, there's a decent chance of re-injury.
Yeah.
Now onto our inside linebackers, we have Jalen Smith from the Cowboys and Blake Martinez, who is now at the Giants after being at the Packers. Smith has been a pretty reliable presence in the middle there for Dallas for a couple of seasons now, while Martinez really was in charge of that linebacker corps in Green Bay, and I think he will have just a really positive presence amongst that young Giants defense.
Yeah, Jalen Smith had over 100 tackles in each of his last 2 seasons. He's also had a few sacks here and there. He's a very well-rounded player for this Cowboys team. He's one of the best defensive players on that squad. He's entering his 4th season here, so he's yet to enter his prime, and I don't see why he shouldn't continue to improve. Blake Martinez, he's a tackling machine. He's had over 140 tackles in each of his last 3 seasons, and he's played the full season or in all 3. So, great inside linebackers here.
Yeah, you mentioned Jalen Smith entering his 4th season in the league. Really excited to see how he performs. Just well deserving, I reckon.
Yeah, the Giants. I just want to talk about Blake Martinez for a sec. The Giants really redid their linebacking corps. They got They picked up 2 Green Bay players, actually. They picked up Martinez and Kyler Fackrell. It's going to be interesting how they operate with those new players. I am a big fan of Jalen Smith, and those 2 players are definitely deserving of our spot.
I agree. Now, on to our secondary. Our 2 cornerbacks are Darius Slay, who is now at the Eagles, and James Bradbury at the Giants now after he was at the Panthers. The moment Slay was traded to Philadelphia, he became the best cornerback in this division, in my opinion. I don't think there's any argument to be made there. James Bradbury is a pretty decent second cornerback. He was pretty serviceable in Carolina for a fair portion of time there, and I think he'll be another positive presence.
Yeah, regarding Darius Slay, I feel like no one really talks about him, and I think the big reason for that is just because he's on the Lions.
Yeah.
No one really talks about the players on the Lions squad. Like, you've got some solid players there.
He's lost in a bad defense.
Yeah. So, he's on Philly now. He's one of the better cornerbacks in the league. Without a doubt, the best acquisition for the Eagles in this offseason. And they fixed a very weak position of theirs. And I think Slay's a no-brainer here. I think he'll be incredible in this secondary.
We talked about much more now as part of the Eagles.
Yeah, so he's Darius Slay entering his 8th season in the league. Obviously, he's not quite a veteran yet, you'd say, but he definitely has that experience. I don't really see him having a slump.
I'd say he is a veteran.
Yeah, he's 29 years old. I'd say that's a veteran.
Yeah, that probably counts as a veteran.
He's still got plenty of good years left in him, though.
Exactly, but as I said, I don't think he'll slump. As you said, Jack, you mentioned that the second you added into this division, you took that number 1 spot at cornerback. So, yep, completely agree.
I'd just like to mention he's 2 years removed from an 8 interception season with the Lions. That was incredible. He's had 13 interceptions in the last 3 seasons. Definitely the best corner in this division. Also like to mention with Bradbury, he's definitely underappreciated. He puts up big numbers. He had 12 passes defense and 3 interceptions last season. So New York made quite a few good moves on their defense.
Now into our deeper secondary, we have our 2 safeties here. At free safety, we have Dallas's Xavier Woods and also Dallas's Clinton Dix, who just signed in free agency from Chicago. Xavier Woods has been a pretty reliable guy deep in Dallas secondary for a little while now. Last season, he had 77 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. He's a pretty reliable guy. I can't really think of anyone else who's more deserving of this position. In terms of Clinton Dix, he's been just a really durable player over his career. He's a pretty decent coverage safety. I think there's room for improvement in terms of tackling, but apart from that, these are 2 well-deserving players.
With Clinton Dix, there's nothing really special about him, right? He's not top-tier safety in the league, whatever, but he is a very reliable one.
He does little things right.
He's never missed a regular season game in his career, and since his peak in 2016, he's put up respectable numbers. He's very deserving of this position.
Yeah, just obviously the last few years he's been traded to Washington from Green Bay to Chicago. I hope he finds a more permanent home in Dallas this time around.
Yeah, I'd say Xavier Woods, like you said, has been very consistent. I think the only other person in that division that could really compete with him for this spot in our team would have been Rodney McLeod from Philadelphia. But in respect to Clinton Dix, he did make a couple of big splash plays last season. That really long pick 6 early in the season
against Washington,
that was pretty impressive against his old team, yeah.
Now to our special teams players. At kicker, we have Philadelphia's Jake Elliott. At punter, we have Dallas's Chris Jones. And our returner is Steven Sims Jr. out of Washington. Now, onto our All-NFC North team, and at quarterback, it's another really obvious decision in Green Bay's Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is a really easy choice. I like Stafford. He's an above-average quarterback in my opinion, but he's just never been able to reach the level of Rodgers, and hence Rodgers gets the nod here.
Not even close. I mean, Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's up there with Brady, Mahomes, Breeze, Wilson. And he's been able to achieve quite a lot with a pretty bad supporting cast throughout his career. I mean, not even just on the roster, but also the management. I mean, he had Mike McCarthy, who was a terrible head coach for most of his career. As you said, Stafford is definitely an above-average quarterback. I think he's very underrated. but he's just not on the same level as
Yeah.
Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers has proven time and time again how valuable he is and how special a player he is. It's not even close. The NFC East quarterback rankings we did, it was more close. It was closer, but this is not close at all. It's definitely Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and another thing to note is they didn't really help him much in the offseason, did they?
No,
They didn't
not at
pick
all.
a receiver in the draft. They pretty much got the
Lol.
same, like, average supporting cast, probably even below average. He's got Devontae Adams.
That's it.
Like-
And Aaron Jones to help him out, but that's
Yeah,
it.
that's it. So we're probably going to see... And if Rodgers still makes this team a playoff team to get to the conference game with the players around him, that's just... It's a real... It really shows us how good
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
Our running back one here in the NFC North is Minnesota's Dalvin Cook. I believe it's close between Cook and Aaron Jones for the running back one spot here, but I think Cook gets the nod here. Cook has such a great blend of size, strength, speed, and ability, and if he can stay injury-free, I believe he can eventually be a top 3 running back in this league.
Yeah, I'd say, as you said, it is close between Aaron Jones and Dalvin Cook here, but I do believe Dalvin Cook is just on that next level compared to Jones. Cook had 1,135 rushing yards in just 14 games last season. He also got 13 rushing touchdowns. He also had over 500 receiving yards, so he's also a good safety blanket for Kirk Cousins in that squad. He's one of the best running backs in the league right now and will continue to be so for the next few years.
Yeah, I just really hope he can stay healthy here. He was looking like he would break out in his rookie season in 2017. Obviously got injured. Had a full run at it in 2019, and he showed us how formidable he is. You said it's close between Aaron Jones and Dalvin Cook, but I reckon Dalvin Cook is utilised better in the Minnesota offense, and his stats alone show him why he's so good.
I'd also like to mention with Dalvin Cook, like, I do agree with him being number one, but we can't discount the fact Aaron Jones had 16 rushing touchdowns last season.
That was incredible.
He had 3 receiving touchdowns on top of that. That's over a touchdown a game. He had 42 broken tackles compared to Cook's 29. However, like you said, Anthony, I think Minnesota use him in their offense better than Green Bay does.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Obviously, our running back 2 here is Aaron Jones. Like Cook, Jones is a dynamic back who's had the fortune of playing behind a pretty decent Packers offensive line. I think he'll continue to get better, and especially if he's utilised more in the passing game, which I believe he definitely has the ability to be. Yeah,
he's been a great asset for the Packers once he got more carries. I mean, in his first season, he didn't get that many carries, but he played his first full season last year and he got over 1,000 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns. I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely the second best running back in this league. Sorry, division. Not quite. He wishes. But, I can't see a third running back in this division taking that spot over Aaron Jones. We mentioned it when we're discussing the Dalvin Cook. Clearly the second best running back in this division, yeah.
I mean, Jones, he did play a full season, but we have to mention that he did share some snaps with Jamal Williams. Yeah, Jamal Williams had over 100 carries, and Aaron Jones being able to still crack 1,000 is pretty incredible.
The 3 wide receivers we chose for the NFC North All-Division team are Kenny Golladay from Detroit, Devontae Adams from Green Bay, and Chicago's Allen Robinson. Golladay is the pretty easy choice at wide receiver 1. He's blossomed into a really good wide receiver 1 for Detroit alongside Marvin Jones, and if Stafford can stay healthy, I feel like their offense can be one of the better, probably one of the top half offenses in the league. We talked about Adams before being the only kind of weapon at Rodgers' disposal. He's been such a reliable receiver for Rodgers over the years. He's been his go-to, and for good reason. He's got that combination of jump ball ability and speed threat. And Robinson, since he's arrived in Chicago, he's been such a reliable option for Bears quarterbacks. And despite the generally poor quarterback play in Chicago, Robinson has still put up more than respectable numbers. I feel like with decent quarterback play, he could be really special, as throughout his career, he's really not had great quarterback play. He's played with the Bortles and Trubisky, which is
not a
too
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to mention with Golladay, he's such an underrated wide receiver, and he shouldn't be. But the fact that he plays for Detroit again means that he doesn't get talked about often. He's had over 1,000 receiving yards in both seasons as a starter, and right now he's the only proven strong weapon for Stafford right now. I wouldn't be surprised if that changes because Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift could very well help that Lions offense get going. But Golladay is definitely a great receiver and deserving of the number one spot here. Devontae Adams, he's been incredibly consistent throughout his career. As you said before, Jack, he's the only receiving threat on the Packers right now, and it's impressive how well he's played with so much attention on him from a defensive standpoint. Allen Robinson, another really good receiver. He's very good. It's just he's played with poor quarterbacks his entire career. I mean, he's had Blake Bortles, Chase Daniel, Mr. Trubisky. No one's...
But he's still managed to produce at a really high level.
And he's in his prime at the moment, so I think that he's going to put up some great numbers next season. And he definitely has potential to be in that conversation, be one of the best in the league.
Yeah, interesting to see his production if Nick Foles gets that starting job in Chicago. Kenny Golladay, you mentioned, had over 1,000 yards in the last 2 seasons. In his 2019 season, he averaged 18.3 yards per reception.
Yeah.
Pretty damn good. Yeah.
Yeah, he also added those 11 receiving touchdowns. A lot of people, when they look at Golladay, they're like, wow, he only caught 56% of his targets. Who was throwing to him? He didn't have that really good guy. He had 6 drops. That's definitely not the worst in this league.
Well, sorry, just to interrupt you there. For most of the season, he had David Blau and Jeff Driscoll.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't even have Stafford.
Yeah, Stafford was in for most of the year, so...
Exactly. I reckon he would have gotten a lot more receptions with someone like Stafford throwing to him. Talking about targets, we had Allen Robinson at 155 targets. He's that clear-cut number 1 guy in Chicago, and as you said, he's just going into his prime now. He's going to be amazing. Adams almost reached 1,000 yards in only 12 games, which is also great. We have a great selection of receivers here.
Yeah, definitely.
At tight end, we chose Chicago's Jimmy Graham. He was at Green Bay last season. Graham's prime years have most certainly passed him by, but he's the best option here amongst a bunch of fairly below-average tight ends. I believe Graham's production is better than Kyle Rudolph's at this stage of their careers. However, in their primes, I probably lean towards Rudolph.
Yeah, I agree there, Jack. I mean, Jimmy Graham right now is the best of a bad bunch in this division. Nothing to add. Graham's been serviceable at best, and that's really all I have to say.
Yep. Didn't even get over 500 yards in the 2019 campaign. Yeah, nothing to add.
Yeah, just about Rudolph. I mean, he really did show up in the playoffs and gave Kirk Cousins a good option. I think he's underappreciated. He only had 48 targets last season in 16 games. I feel like if he got the amount of opportunities Jimmy Graham got in Green Bay, he could probably be in this spot. But right now, it's definitely Jimmy
I
Graham.
feel like Rudolph's peak has kind of passed him by at this stage.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Because they do have Irv Smith Jr. there in Minnesota as well. So I feel like eventually he will eventually start being given more targets than Rudolph. Our offensive line in the NFC North consists of offensive tackle David Bakhtiari at Green Bay, as well as the Packers' Elton Jenkins at guard. At center, we have Detroit's Frank Ragnow. At guard, Pat Elflein from Minnesota, and Minnesota's Riley Reif at the second tackle spot. To me, it's no surprise we've only got Green Bay, Minnesota players here, as they've played respectively huge parts in the Packers and Vikings' successful running games.
I do want to mention you said that we've only got Green Bay and Minnesota players here. We do have Frank Ragnow from Detroit, but it is no surprise that, as we said before, we've got the 2 best running backs in the division here in Aaron Jones and Dalvin Cook, and one of the biggest reasons why they're so successful is because of their offensive lines, and it really shows how strong these guys are.
Point, yeah.
There's a possibility that Bakhtiari is the best tackle in the league. He is at that level. Green Bay do have a pretty good offensive line.
Yeah.
And no surprises here for me.
Our defensive line here, we have Daniel Hunter from Minnesota, Kenny Clark from Green Bay at defensive tackle, and then defensive end we have Akeem Hicks from Chicago. Hunter has been just really productive for Minnesota, and with Everson Griffin and Linville Joseph departing at the end of last season, I think he'll only be given more room to, succeed in that defense.
I think that very productive is an understatement for Daniel Hunter. He's an absolute monster. He's had 14.5 sacks and 70 tackles in both 2018 and 19. That speaks for itself. He also had 22 quarterback hits last year. He's easily the best defensive end in this division.
Yeah. So in the NFL, the rankings of the most sacks recorded in the season that just went past, he was 4th in that list. The top defensive end in this division in terms of the sacks recorded, he is a monster. Definitely deserving of being top of this ranking.
Yeah, definitely. I like to talk about Akeem Hicks. He's had incredible production when he's been healthy. Between 2016 and 18, he had over 20 sacks.
Yeah.
At that spot, he only played 5 games last season, but still managed to play well in big games.
A lot of people forget that he is an essential part of the Bears' defense, and his injury last year heavily impacted the team as a whole.
Yeah, I was just going to say Hicks is not often talked about, but I believe he's one of the best. He's among the best defensive ends in all of football, let alone this division, alongside Hunter. I do like Kenny Clark as well. He's definitely the anchor of that Green Bay front seven.
Yep.
They have lost a couple pieces on defense over this off-season, so he becomes that much more important this season to kind of keep that defensive productivity high for them. Just back on Hicks really quick. He was injured, as you said, Emilian, for a fair portion of last season. I feel like if he's fully healthy, he will be able to not only complement Khalil Mack on that Bears defense, but also the recently acquired Robert Quinn. At our 2 edge spots, we have Khalil Mack from the Bears and Zadarius Smith from Green Bay. These two kind of go without saying it. They're pretty obvious choices. Khalil Mack is one of the best defensive players in football. He was a little bit down last season, but I probably attribute that mostly to the amount of double team attention he got. And with Hicks being out for most of the season and Leonard Floyd not producing very much, there wasn't really anyone to relieve much of that pressure. Zadarius Smith really came on last year in his first season with Green Bay, and I think he'll only get better.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that once Khalil Mack came to Chicago, they became one of the best, if not the best defense in the league in 2018. His presence has really elevated the entire Bears defense. He's made, people like Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller, all that. They've really all elevated their games as a whole.
Makes
and
everyone
it's
better.
been incredible.
Good pass rush ups at secondary.
And with Zadarius Smith, he was serviceable in Baltimore, nothing amazing, but from his season in Green Bay last year, absolutely incredible. 13.5 sacks and 55 tackles. Nothing much more to add there. He's been very good in Green Bay. Hopefully he can continue to do so.
Yeah, I have no comments for Khalil Mack. He's obviously a beast. I can't say anything. Yeah.
Yeah, just on Zadarius Smith, he had insane production last season. I mean, he had 13.5 sacks during the regular season, then an additional 2 in the playoffs. But we can't forget, he had 37 quarterback hits during the season. That's insane. That's more than 2 per game.
Yeah.
Incredible player. Him paired with Preston Smith. They're a great duo there in Green Bay.
Our 2 inside linebackers now, we have Minnesota's Eric Kendricks and Chicago's Roquan Smith. Kendricks has been, a really reliable guy in the middle of that Minnesota defense for a while now, and I don't see why he would not continue to be a pretty reliable presence. Obviously, he becomes that number 1 guy at inside linebacker after the departure of Blake Martinez from Green Bay. And we've got Roquan Smith there from Chicago. He's, a really well-rounded guy. I feel like he's not quite elite yet, but I feel like he will eventually trend that way if he can stay injury-free and continue to improve, which I believe he can.
Eric Kendricks, he's an outstanding tackler. He's had 5 seasons in the league, and he's had over 100 tackles in the last 4. I mean, that's just incredible. Exactly. Roquan Smith, he's a very well-rounded inside linebacker. He's put up great numbers in his first 2 seasons, and it'll be interesting to see how much he grows as his career continues.
Yeah, I really like what we're seeing from Eric Kendricks. We've talked about it in previous podcasts, all the losses that Minnesota have had on their defense. I really think this gives Eric Kendricks more opportunities to make even more tackles, to become more of a leader in that offense. So I only see more upside from him. Yeah.
Into our secondary now in NFC North, we have our two cornerbacks in Kyle Fuller from Chicago and Green Bay's Jair Alexander. Kyle Fuller, since his contract here a few years ago, has really become one of the premier cornerbacks in the league. He has really become an interception machine. And like you mentioned earlier, Emilian, he's one of the benefactors of just a great Chicago pass rush. And he's just really blossomed into a really good, starting cornerback. Obviously, as well as Jair Alexander at Green Bay, he's proven to be a pretty good draft pick for them, and a really great cornerback one.
Yeah, Kyle Fuller, as I said, interception machine. He had 3 interceptions last year, but in 2018 he had 7. That's outstanding. He's also, last year he had a career high 82 tackles, which is also very, very impressive. Jair Alexander, he's another great asset to the Packers defense, along with Zadarius Smith and Kenny Clark. He's a great cornerback with a very bright future.
Yeah, I agree. Eddie Jackson on that Bears defense also had similar season to Kyle Fuller did in Chicago in 2018. He recorded 6 sacks himself. Obviously slumped a little bit in 2019, but I really like his upside. Great player in Chicago.
That's a good point, Anthony. Like Kyle Fuller, Jackson is another benefactor of that really great pass rush, especially in 2018. In 2019, they both kind of had dropped a little bit, but that's because the defense as a whole kind of regressed. And a little bit of that can be attributed to Vic Fangio's departure as he became head coach of the Broncos.
Mm.
In that deeper secondary, we do have Jackson at free safety, and at strong safety we have Minnesota's Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith has been, one of, if not the best strong safety in the league for a few years now, let alone, the NFC North. He's a hard-hitting safety, and, he really anchors that Vikings defense.
When you think of defensive touchdowns, do you think of Eddie Jackson? I mean...
especially in 2018, yeah.
Yeah, in the last, before this season, he still had a productive season with 2 interceptions, fumble recovery, but...
He had one of the highest coverage grades among free safeties last season,
yeah.
even in a downish year in terms of interceptions.
Yeah, because people think, he had 5 defensive touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. Well, he didn't have any this season. That doesn't make him a bad player, like you said. He really improved his coverage grade. And Harrison Smith, he's been a great safety for a long time in this league. No questions there. Emilian?
With Eddie Jackson, he's only been in the league for 3 years, and he's already got 10 interceptions. That's quite incredible. It's going to be very intriguing to see how he evolves as one of the best safeties in the league.
I did just want to continue on that point, Arif, when you mentioned Jackson's kind of little drop-off in terms of interceptions and defensive touchdowns. I would like to mention that after the departure of Adrian Amos in 2018, he's a really true strong safety, and once he left, there was a hole there at strong safety for the Bears, and Clinton-Dix, who is first and foremost a free safety, him and Jackson were interchanging at that free safety position, which means Jackson did have to play out of position for a fair portion of last season, which I believe really attributes to his kind of lack of interceptions and defensive touchdowns, as opposed to 2018.
Yeah.
You mentioned before that Harrison Smith has been one of the best strong safety, if not the best strong safety in the league for a while now. And even though he is past his prime, obviously, I don't see him regressing a whole lot until he retires. I think he's going to keep playing at the same level until he finally hangs up the cleats.
His stats have been very consistent over the last few years. His statistics for combined tackles have been in the 80s, 90s for the last 5 seasons. Hasn't shown any signs of dropping off yet.
Jack, you mentioned before about Clinton-Dix. He was only in Chicago for one season. Then he departed. Do you think the newly acquired Tashawn Gibson will be able to complement Eddie Jackson?
I think he'll be able to complement him better than what Clinton-Dix could, just because Tashawn Gibson has actually had more experience playing strong safety than has, since Clinton-Dix has pretty much played free safety his entire career. He's not, he wasn't used to playing strong safety whereas Gibson does have experience playing that position, and so I feel like he definitely can complement him better. And yeah, I was definitely a pretty big fan of that signing. Onto our special teams here as we finish up. Our kicker, we chose Matt Prater from Detroit. Pretty easy choice. He's been a really reliable leg for the Lions over the years. Our returner, we chose Cordell Patterson from Chicago. You know, I believe not only is Patterson the best returner in NFC North, I believe he's the best returner in all of football. Obviously, even you got amongst guys like Tyreek Hill, I still think Patterson is the best in the business. And our punter is Britton Colquitt from Minnesota.
Yep, no arguments here. Looks all good to me.
Agreed.
That wraps up our NFC, our all NFC North and all NFC East division teams. Next week in episode 5, we'll be going over our all NFC West and all NFC South division teams. If you haven't already, go and follow us on Instagram at TouchDownUnder, where we post all of this content where we discuss on the podcast. So make sure if you want to follow along with us in the future, you go and check us out there. And on Twitter, we are at the TDU Podcast. On Facebook, we do premiere a podcast there as well. We're at TouchDownUnder. And on YouTube, we're at TouchDownUnder as well.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.